Ladies and gentlemen, the very word secrecy is repugnant in a free and open society, and we are, as a people, inherently and historically opposed around the world by a monolithic and ruthless conspiracy that relies primarily on covert means for expanding its sphere of influence. It is a system which has conscripted vast human and material resources into the building of a tightly knit, highly efficient machine that combines military, diplomatic, intelligence, economic, scientific, and political operations. Its preparations are concealed, not published. Its mistakes are buried, not headlined. Its dissenters are silenced, not praised. No expenditure is questioned, no secret is revealed. I am asking your help in the tremendous task of informing and alerting the American people, confident that with your help, man will be what he was born to be, free and independent.
Permit me to issue and control a nation's money, and I care not who makes its laws.
For centuries, small groups of people have controlled entire governments by taking control of their central banking systems. In 1913, the dominant families in the banking and business world, such as the Rockefellers, the Morgans, the Warburgs, and the Rothschilds, exploited public view on the banking industry in order to establish a privately owned central banking system called the Federal Reserve. The Federal Reserve is a streamlined machine designed to expand their personal ambitions. It gave them direct control of the nation's monetary and political systems. It is important to note that the most lucrative thing that can happen to a nation is war. This forces the American people to borrow money at interest, ultimately furthering the profits of the international bankers. During World War I, U.S. Secretary of State William Jennings Bryan noted,
"The large banking interests were deeply interested in the World War because of the wide opportunities for large profits."
In a documented conversation by Colonel House, Woodrow Wilson's advisor, and Sir Edward Grey, the Foreign Secretary of England, regarding how to get America into the war, Grey inquired,
"What will Americans do if Germans sink an ocean liner with American passengers on board?"
House responded,
"I believe that a flame of indignation would sweep the United States, and that by itself would be sufficient to carry us into war."
So on May 7, 1915, on only the suggestion of Grey, a ship called the Lusitania was deliberately sent into German-controlled waters where German military vessels were known to be. As expected, German U-boats torpedoed the ship, exploding stored ammunition, killing 1,200 people. America joined the war, the banks profited. It is important to note that the Rockefellers made billions of dollars off of World War I and were eager to make even more during World War II. During World War II, in a journal entry by President Roosevelt, Secretary of War Henry Stimson, dated November 25, 1941, he documented a conversation he had with Roosevelt.
The question was, how should we maneuver them into firing the first shot? It was desirable to make sure the Japanese be the ones to do this so that there remained no doubt as to who were the aggressors.
Shortly before the attack on Pearl Harbor, Roosevelt ignored an Australian intelligence report that a Japanese task force was headed towards the United States. That same task force attacked and killed 2,400 American soldiers. America joined the war, the banks profited. It is important to note that Nazi Germany's war effort was largely supported by two organizations, one of which was called IG Farben. IG Farben produced 84% of Germany's explosives. One of the unspoken partners of IG Farben was J.D. Rockefeller's U.S. Standard Oil Company, which provided the Nazis with millions of dollars worth of fuel. This is just one example of how American companies funded both sides of the war. One other treasonous organization worth mentioning is the Union Banking Corporation of New York City. It was eventually exposed as a Nazi money laundering bank and was seized under the Trading with the Enemies Act for funding Hitler's rise to power. The director and vice president of the Union Banking Corporation was none other than Prescott Bush, our former president's father and our current president's grandfather. So that brings us to 9/11. How is this event any different to the sinking of the Lusitania or the attack on Pearl Harbor? This attack on U.S. soil played on the idea of fear in order to jumpstart an accelerated agenda by the ruthless elite. But the war isn't in Iraq. It's here in America.
After 9/11, the U.S., Canada, and Mexico began what they call the Security and Prosperity Partnership, aimed at beefing up security on the borders without halting commerce. But some conservatives see it as a grand conspiracy by President Bush and others to erase our borders with Mexico and Canada and surrender our sovereignty to something called the North American Union.
The SPP, which many consider to be simply a blueprint for the North American Union, would weaken U.S. laws and regulations and diminish American sovereignty. The Bush administration's open borders policy and its decision to ignore the enforcement of this country's immigration laws is part of a broader agenda. President Bush signed a formal agreement that will end the United States as we know it, and he took the step without approval from either the U.S. Congress or the people of the United States.
President Bush, former Mexican President Vicente Fox, and former Canadian Prime Minister Paul Martin conceived the Security and Prosperity Partnership between the three countries in 2005. Current information on any agreements is scarce.
I appreciate the commitment of the Prime Minister and the President toward a spirit of partnership to outlast whatever politics may occur.
Some people who think on a global scale may disrespect the unique country that America is. If this North American Free Trade Union continues on the path that it is, it's very clear that we will give up sovereignty.
Now, I risk sounding like a conspiracy theorist, but it's no longer a theory. What I'm about to say is fact. The secret organizations of the world power elite are no longer secret.
It's being done again by very few people at the very top on behalf of the investment class.
On the outskirts of the national capital today, black limousines with darkened windows converged on a hotel where private security guards imposed ironclad control. The limos carried royalty, political power brokers, and industrial titans to a secret meeting that will last all weekend. It's known as the Bilderberg Group. Could their objective be world domination?
It is a big idea, a new world order.
President Bush said that the New World Order was in tune, and that's what they were working for. The UN is part of that government. They're working right now very significantly for a North American Union. That's why there's a lot of people in Washington that don't care too much about our borders. They have a philosophic belief that national sovereignty is not important.
They have planned and are now leading us into a one-world communist government.
What is being sold to the American people today as Americanism, if you peel off the label, you find so much similarity to what we were fighting against when we were fighting communism and Nazism and fascism.
The combining of national governments started with the European Union. That union started with trade agreements, then a common currency, the euro, and now a European Parliament that is feverishly passing laws. A constitution was drafted but rejected by a few of those nations, but never mind. They implemented it anyway.
There's a lot of concern by many people in America that it could evolve into something similar to the European Union. They're giving up a lot of their individuality in the European Union, and some of their freedoms, and decisions are being made in Belgium that affect the EU. You know, to some extent, that's healthy. I mean, we give up some of our freedoms to have a federal government.
Now it's North America's turn. Building on the North American Free Trade Agreement, the NAFTA section of the Commerce Department is busy drafting laws and regulations for a North American Union, a union of Canada, America, and Mexico. The President has attended secret meetings and signed at least 2 agreements under the Security and Prosperity Partnership Program. Information leaked out about the meetings, and now it is all in the open. No treaty has been signed, so Congress has not become involved.
And it is even possible that Congress may not even have a say. What we are hearing is that the Bush administration is trying to use NAFTA as the justification for doing a lot of this, Luke.
We've already got NAFTA, the free trade zone, isn't it? I mean, is that working? Is that doing enough? Well, I'll tell you what, it's created a lot of illegal immigrants coming across the border. I don't know. You get the pros and cons on this thing. NAFTA, for some people, is a very good thing. For other people, it's been a disaster.
However, money from our treasury is now being spent for this effort. We will have a new currency, the Amero.
The Amero is the proposed new currency for the North American community, which is being developed right now between Canada, the U.S., and Mexico to make a borderless community, much like the EU, and the dollar, Canadian dollar, U.S. dollar, and the Mexican peso replaced by the Amero. The Canadians are pretty upset about it, whereas the Americans, apart from the Texans, are the only people who know anything about it. The rest of the public's really sort of with their head in the sand on this one.
The media controls the information that a person gets. In various ways, they can make sure that the average American watching the tube or reading the newspaper is going to come out with a certain mindset. He's going to say, this is good, that's bad, and that's all they have to do.
We will have a new constitution modeled on the Soviet Union's constitution. Our rights will not be inalienable, but they will be granted by government, who can also take them away.
And the United States putting together a constitution now for Iraq. You know, why don't we just give them ours? I mean, think about it. It served us well for over 200 years, and we don't appear to be using it anymore, so what the hell?
It is the only way that we can achieve security and prosperity for our people is through this cooperation.
One sign that this is our future is the plans for the superhighways from southern Mexico through America and into Canada. These plans are not secret any longer. Huge amounts of property will be taken in the name of free trade, peace, and security. You will have a national ID card with a radio frequency chip in it.
In the new legislation, the national ID card is in it. It takes 3 or 4 pages to describe, and it will be connected with our driver's licenses. The states will be instructed on exactly what they have to do. Social security numbers will be used. Some type of a physical proof, such as fingerprints or retinal prints, have to be on it.
RFID is a technology that uses tiny computer chips the size of a grain of sand or even smaller, hooked up to miniature antennas to transmit information about items at a distance. The latest technology for identifying people at the point of sale, for identifying people when they make purchases, is actually the implantable chip that you can actually embed directly into human flesh. It's a tiny glass capsule about the size of a grain of rice. It contains an RFID computer chip with a coiled antenna, and it can transmit information also at a distance.
I got a call one day from an attorney woman I knew, and she said, would you like to meet one of the Rockefellers? I said, sure, I'd love to. And we became friends, and he began to divulge a lot of things to me. So he said to me one night, he said that there's going to be an event there, and out of that event, you're going to see, we're going to go into Afghanistan, so we can run pipelines from the Caspian Sea. We're going to go into Iraq to take the oil and establish a base in the Middle East. And he said you're going to see guys going into caves looking for looking for people that they're never going to find. You know, he was laughing about the fact that you have this war on terror. There's no real enemy. He's talking about how by having this war on terror, you can never win it because so it's an eternal war. And so you can always keep taking people's liberties away. And I said, how are you going to convince people that this war is real? He says, but the media can convince everybody it's real. I mean, you know, it's just that you keep talking about things. You keep saying it over and over and over again, and eventually people believe it. You know, you created the Federal Reserve in 1913 through lies. You create 9/11, which is another lie. Through 9/11, you're fighting a war on terror, and now all of a sudden you go into Iraq, which was another lie, and now they're going to do Iran. You know, and it's all one thing leading to another, leading to another, leading to another. Now, I would say to them, what are you doing this for? What's the point of this thing? You have all the money in the world you ever want. You have all the power. I said, you know, you're hurting people. It's not a good thing. And he would say, what do you care about the people for? Take care of yourself and you take care of your family. And then I said to him, what are the ultimate goals here? He said, the ultimate goal is to get everybody in this world chipped with the RFID chip. And have all money be on those chips and everything on those chips. And if anybody wants to protest what we do or violate what we want, we just turn off their chip.
This is terrorism of the most worst kind, brought on you by our own government. The strongest, freest nation in the history of mankind will be averaged into world communism.
You will and you are failing now. Your New World Order will fall. Humanity will defeat you. The answer to 1984 is 1776.